So I ordered a BitAxe from AliExpress. This idea formed after making a video, the one that you see here, BitAxe prices are way too high, why they can't sell for less. And it kind of went over how many vendors have different prices to buy a BitAxe, and this kind of ranged from around $140 up to $250 overall. I also had a lot of feedback from the video in the comments, saying it wasn't a fair comparison because there's certain upgrades that happen with miners and they get creative license on what they're going to build in terms of the Nocta fans or the heat sinks. So today we're going to be going through the whole process of ordering this BitAxe from AliExpress, going over the prices, going over how long it took to get here, and then tearing it down. I do want to preface that this video is not to encourage you to buy from AliExpress because sometimes the product isn't what is shown. In this video as well, after we tear it down, you can kind of see the build quality of it and it's not that great. So you could be buying something and losing money. So I'm not encouraging you to buy from AliExpress at all. But if you do want to get a BitAxe from a reputable supplier, please check out the sponsor of this video, Crypto Miner Bros. Since 2018, CryptoMinerBros.com has been the premier site for top-tier crypto mining hardware, earning the trust of miners across the globe. The prices displayed on their site cover shipping and DDP straight to your doorstep, ensuring no unexpected costs at checkout. They deliver to over 100 countries and even provide lower invoicing options to help you cut down on customs fees. Payment is a breeze with options like direct bank transfer or cryptocurrencies including Bitcoin, USDT, or Ethereum. With over 250 ASIC options, they stock some of the channel's favorites like the BitAxe Touch, and the Avalon Nano 3S. Join tens of thousands of happy customers who rely on CryptoMinerBros.com for dependable hardware fulfillment, clear pricing, and a top-notch service. Check out CryptoMinerBros.com today, link in the description. So let's actually take a look at what we ordered. So this is the exact URL for what we ordered in terms of the BitAxe. We didn't actually get it at this price, but it does say 42% off and around 107.59 pounds, and we'll do some conversions later on just to show you how much it actually cost. But as you can see there, you can get it with US plugs, UK plugs, Brazilian plugs, small sans plugs. I don't know what that is. So the reason I just went with this one because it was kind of the cheapest one that I could find that looked reputable. So if you search in BitAxe on AliExpress right now, you can see a bunch of them as well. So you have this one for 97. These prices change all the time, basically every day. You have a DIY BitAxe with a BM197. And you've got a bunch of them here. They even list things like the Nerd Axe that you see here. And then they even have a Nerd Q Axe main board. So I have seen a lot of people selling just the boards on here as well, and certain components for it. If you type in BitAxe Gamma into the top, you'll get a bunch of them like this. And that's mainly what we actually searched for instead of just normal BitAxe. So BitAxe Gamma is what we searched for. So we didn't want to go with one that was too low in price. So if you go in price high to low, you can see 97. But we also wanted to go with one with some reviews on it as well. I don't know if anyone from the UK has actually ordered one of these. These all look like EU plugs, as you can see. So there's one there from UK plugs, and there's basically nothing else in terms of them leaving a comment. But with EU plugs, it says all good working and hashing. Build is different than 601 version, but everything is working. Exchange stand with one I had lying around here. You can kind of see the pictures, and we'll get into kind of what it looks like at the later part of the video. So one thing about this is that a lot of the pictures that they actually use for AliExpress are definitely taken from different websites. As you can see here, it says 30 watts in this picture. And if you go to the actual specifications, it lists it at 18 watts. It also lists it as brand name Lucky Miner. So that kind of threw me off, but I thought I'm going to order it anyway. And if it doesn't come through as an actual BitAxe, I'm just going to send it back and request the money back. So the brand name is actually Lucky Miner, and the model number is BitAxe Gamma 601, and it obviously came from China. And you kind of see this across the board. If we just click on one of these right here, you can kind of see, if we click down here, they do have weird brand names like ETHW, which is, you know, pretty much useless in terms of what you're looking for. But they all use different images that they've obviously scraped off of other websites to sell these. And actually, if we look back here, a lot have been ordered. So 12 sold there, 29, 14, 52. So it's actually quite a lot that are being sold. Even this one has 267 sold, so that's quite a lot. But as I said, this is not actually the price that I got it for. The prices change pretty much daily on AliExpress for things. But we do have a spreadsheet here, and this is from the previous video talking about BitAxe prices. So you can see here, this is the total. So we have the unit price, the tax, and the total. And then we have the amount of days it took to ship. So we ordered it on the 19th of March. It arrived 3rd of April. So it took 15 days to get here, or just a little over 2 weeks, which is actually very long. You know, normally I'm used to having things within the week, but clearly shipping from China is not as quick as it is from, you know, Amazon warehouses and other things in the EU. But I'm assuming it might be a little bit quicker in the US. It just depends on regionally where you are. So let's get into the price. So unit price, which is going to be this price that we see displayed here, that was £101.39, which actually converts into $130.51. So that would put it at the unit price of being probably the cheapest one out of what we found. The tax on it, however, does bring it up. So you have a tax of £28.14, and then converted is $36.23. I don't know what the tax situation is in regards to other countries around the world, but I believe in certain countries you can write that off. So you could be getting them for $130 if you could write off the tax. But the total comes to $129.53. So this is what we actually spent overall. And I don't really know what happened with the customs situation because I didn't have to pay anything. I'm assuming that that was included within the whole price. But normally there is a certain customs fees that you'll have to pay on these electronics from China. But I don't know how that was actually charged. And that brings us to a total of $166.74. So that's the unit price plus tax. And that puts it at the 4th lowest spot. So Virginia Freedom Tech, Gecko Science, and BitAxe are all lower prices than what we ordered from AliExpress. The rest of them are a lot more than AliExpress. Now, obviously, the main reason that they're so cheap is they're just mass produced on a larger scale than a lot of these. And I think they're kind of put together by machines. There's no real handmade or handcrafted type of stuff that's going on. Normally with these, they're upcharging for certain things like fans, but in China, you're going to get them for cheaper. You can get PCBs for cheaper. The only thing that I think you would really spend money on in China would be the chips. But everything else, even the components, are regularly available. With the regions that you have here, there's normally US and EU. So you have to get a lot of parts imported in to start with to actually build this out. But if you're building it in China, they already have all the parts in there. So that's mainly why it's so cheap to produce one of these. I don't know what the baseline figure is for one of these either. I'm assuming that there's a lot of markup on these, even though they are some of the cheapest BitAxes that you can buy. I'm willing to assume that they can produce these for around $60 overall on a piece-by-piece basis. Also, if you buy it wholesale, you get a little bit of discount as well. So they must be producing quite a lot of these, and I think their baseline cost is probably $60 to $70 overall. There's not really too much human work going into these, I don't think. And as we'll see later on when we actually unbox it, a little bit of a spoiler, but the build quality isn't great, and that kind of shows. So enough of looking at the prices. That was just to gauge you kind of what price you're going to be paying for them. I don't know what it is in the US either, so if you guys can leave it in the comments how much one of these is going for in the US. I can't actually search it through a US URL currently, but if you could drop it in the comments, that would be great. Now let's actually move on to unboxing it, getting it out of the package, and taking a look at it. So this is recorded after the fact, but you're going to be very surprised at what we got in the box. So lastly, if you do enjoy this video and you want to see more things like this, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And now let's get into the unboxing. So here we have the actual package for the BitAxe here. And let's actually just open it. So I think, let me just take it off screen for a second. So as you can see there, it comes in a package that looks like this. If we just move this here. So that's kind of what we're working with right now. And, you know, pretty standard from AliExpress. I guess there is some branding. There's not really branding for the actual vendor that sent it. Also, I think it was dropped in shipping, maybe. So let's actually just open it up here. So I'm gonna open it up like this. So this is what comes in it, the user manual, which I don't know if there is actually a user manual, which comes with a lot of them, but this is basically how to set it up like the normal setup. So through the AXE OS and then through your actual Wi-Fi. And so that is the user manual, I guess. It also shows a bunch of pools there, if you can see that. If we can get it to focus there. It shows public pool, solo mining.io, and a bunch of other ones, Lucky Monster Pro. So that's just a user manual. It says 1.2 terahash, SHA-256, decibels, and the watts. So that's definitely interesting. But the main thing that we want to see is obviously the BitAxe. So it does come with this plastic that a lot of them come with. That's an interesting fan and shroud that you have there. And I don't know what this is. Okay, so that's for a UK plug adapter, I guess, which was actually ordered with it. So they had options for different types of plugs. But that's going to be clipping into there, which obviously we're not going to use. But it looks like a standard one. You have the power cable there. And pretty standard, I guess, but we're not going to use this, so we're going to put that to the side. So let's actually take all of this away, and we can just show the actual BitAxe. So just to give you guys some kind of perspective on this, let's take it into one here. Don't know if we can pull this off. No, it's screwed in, so we're going to have to unscrew that. So it's screwed, and I've already found kind of one problem with it, which is that the heatsink is not very good on it either. So these are actually screwed down very tightly. Sorry if it's being washed out here. Some of the lighting is getting in the way. But we do have our kind of own verified BitAxe right there, which we're going to be comparing this one to. So after unscrewing all of that, as you can see, I don't actually know what that says there. It says Bit Solo Player. I've never heard of that before, but this is basically kind of like the shrouds that you normally get with the BitAxe that you see here. So let's put that to the side. And one thing that I've already noticed, so let's line them up against each other. Let's take these screws out. So that's what the two look like right there. Already this is very shiny compared to the PCB that this one is using. So if we zoom them in a little bit, you can kind of see the difference. And these springs are not the greatest on the heatsink. Even if I just show you there, it's like, that's very, you know, there's not much tension on there. That can be taken out very easily. So we can actually take that out and see what's underneath. But yeah, you can kind of see it's kind of got a glare to it. Whereas this one is, I would say, kind of less of a glare on the actual board. Does that make sense? Like this one's very shiny here, but the PCB here is not very shiny. So let's zoom that out. The ESP also is very different. If you can see there, it's kind of got like a little chunk taken out of it that you can see there. I don't know what that means. Void punk hash. We're gonna have to take that off and see if it's any different. The LCD screen doesn't really matter about that. We normally take them off anyway. But I'm sure it works. The only thing that I'm worried about is actually putting it into the Wi-Fi because of that ESP. It might have kind of different stuff on it, or different software loaded onto it, which could actually get into the network, but we'll have to give it a whirl and see what happens. So before we take everything apart, let's actually plug it in and see what we get with it, and then kind of load it up to the network, I guess. As I said, it doesn't seem like it's kind of any different, apart from the PCB being very shiny. If we look on the back, actually, let's have a comparison. You can kind of see everything's kind of in the same place, but this is different, this back part. Slightly different design there. Looks like the parts are actually a little bit smaller on this one, but I can't really tell. And then you have the fan, whatever. Let's actually get it plugged in and turned on. So we just have a wire here from the power supply. We're just going to plug it into this here, and hopefully it doesn't blow up, but it doesn't look like that's even fitting in there properly. To wiggle it around, maybe? It doesn't look like this even fits in there to power it on. Because normally, like this one is a little bit bigger to allow the room. It seems like that pin is bigger than this pin that you have there. So maybe it's a custom job, like they don't want anyone to actually plug in their own one. But we'll use the plug that they provided. Just give me a second. Seems like this one's a little bit thicker that they provided with. So I guess we're gonna have to go with this. And how much watts is this rated for? It doesn't actually say, I don't think, on there. But it seems like this, 25 watts is what it says on there. So let's actually clip this in. So that's it clipped in, I suppose. And now we just need to actually boot it up using a power connector. So give me 2 seconds. So already a bunch of problems that are going on with this, but let's zoom it out here, and let's actually plug this in. So it is on, and we can configure it, if you can see that there. So it is actually hashing, but it doesn't really say what it's hashing to. SSID, we need to configure that to whatever our internet is, so give it a second. Let's put that there. Let's go onto the computer and actually grab that. So after actually inputting our ID there, you can kind of see what we're getting, and I think now is the best time to chuck it over to the computer, and then we'll come back to this to actually see, firstly, if we can overclock it, how it functions as a normal BitAxe. But it seems to be working so far. I don't trust this fan too much, but we'll see what the temperature is on the actual computer. So let's head over there now. So currently we actually have it running, and we can see the stats here. So it is kind of functioning as an actual BitAxe at the current time. The pool information, so they defaulted it to Digibyte, and then a port on Antpool, actually. So if we actually go to the URL, it doesn't say that it's secure, so let's not actually go to that. But in the settings it came, frequency is default, core voltage is default, the version was 2.5.1, so pretty recent actually. And then the fallback stratum, I think this is default, but that is definitely not a Digibyte address that you see there. Now when it comes to logs, we'll just have a little look here. Seems to be functioning the same. It does have a BM1370 chip in there, apparently, and it is actually submitting shares onto the network. Now it is very loud, I don't trust that fan. If we go here, you can actually see the temperature is 55.9 and the voltage is 43. Obviously it's not overclocked. And the power draw is 19.4. That power supply, I'm definitely not trusting it, but it's 5.2 volts, and the frequency and voltage is what we just saw on the overclocking. So it definitely seems to be a BitAxe Gamma. Now, as I said, the quality on the build is not very good, so the fans and the heatsink is not great. I might actually replace it in this video just to see if we can get you know, even the default heatsink on there instead of the one that they have on there, because I think that one's actually going to be better in terms of the hash rate and the fan mounting. And realistically, we want a lower decibel fan as well. So we are going to take this apart and we're kind of going to do like a tear down of it just to see what's underneath it, see if the chip is actually a BM1370. I know it says it here, but we're just going to make sure on that one. So now we've verified that it can hash. Obviously the hash rate is actually pretty good, 1.1 terahash. So we'll see how that works out. And then let's actually get on to tearing it down right now. So here we have the two BitAxes side by side. We just checked that this was actually hashing, so I'm going to take the LCD off right now. And one thing I did notice, you can actually see this machined hole that you see here is not very good quality compared to what you have on the regular BitAxe. So they're all kind of pushed out, which leads me to believe that they were not even cut, they were just kind of stamped out maybe on these. And then these springs are just not the best springs at all to be keeping the heatsink in place. I mean, the temperature wasn't bad, but it just seemed like these are a bit rudimentary for keeping the actual cooling going. So we're actually going to take them out right now. All we have to do is pinch them and push them through. So these are pretty easy. We don't even need the pliers to actually push these through. We can just do it with our fingers, which is not a great sign. But yeah, let's take that off. So quite a lot of thermal paste actually when I'm looking at it. Let's take the fan off. So I want to get this sticker off as well. Oh, looks like it's kind of just melted onto there. Okay, so I just voided the warranty by taking that off, but it doesn't really matter. So this is what it looks like, as you can see there, and then you have the heatsink by there. So pretty standard heatsink actually. I believe that is kind of the standard one, just with 4 spring pins, but these spring pins aren't the tightest fit onto the actual chip. As I said, the ESP is different. Apart from that, I think everything else is working apart from this power supply. So this little pin right there is a little bit thicker than the normal ones. I don't know where that's coming from, but maybe we'll have to replace that with a different one to get it hooked up. But apart from that, everything on the back looks kind of okay. I don't know, if somebody who's an expert can tell me in the comments below kind of if there's anything dodgy on there. And then on the front, obviously you can tell me if there's anything dodgy, but you can kind of see it's very, very shiny. Like you get a reflection off it, but with this one, there's not really as much reflection as you see right there. So let's actually get this cleaned off, because that's quite a lot of thermal paste, and then we'll see what's below it. Alright, so I think we're just going to go in, dab it, basically at this point. There's quite a lot on there. So let's try to take most of it off, just by doing that. So one thing about thermal paste is it just gets everywhere. Like I'm literally scooping it off the board at this point. Quite a lot on there, if you can see. But let's try and actually polish it so you can see what's beneath it. Sorry, that's not even in frame, but yeah. Let's hit it with a little bit more there. Maybe we'll have to get some cotton buds to really see it, but it looks okay right now. Let's do a little bit more around there. I've got it all over my fingers now. That's great.
as you can see, quite a lot on there, and very hard to get off actually. So that's the best I think we're going to do. And let's have a look at the chip underneath now. So let's actually zoom this right in. As you can see there, it is actually a BM1370BC. So the same thing that we see beneath the regular BitAxe Gamma. Apart from that, everything is kind of the same, I suppose. The board is a little bit shinier, but I mean the parts, the ESP is a bit different, that power supply is a bit different, but at least the chip is actually a BM1370. And yeah, but as I said, I wouldn't really recommend you buying one of these. You can get them from a reputable seller, and it's actually a pretty high price tag for people in the UK. I don't know if it's going to be different for the people in the US. This was actually the cheapest that I could find on AliExpress. The build quality is not great, as I said. You know, some things are very rudimentary on it, and they just have that void sticker, which I don't know why that's on there. But for the price of $170, it's not really the greatest. You can actually find cheaper, more well-made BitAxes out there for cheaper than $170 that will give you a better build quality than what we're seeing here. Even with the amount of thermal paste that's on there, I felt like that was a little bit too much. And the people who are producing these probably don't have a clue what they're doing in terms of quality control on how they should be. Personally, I wouldn't really buy one from AliExpress. As I said, it's not really the best overall. And you're not really supporting the home miners who are trying to make a business off of selling these BitAxes as well. I know it does add to the decentralization of the network if you can hit one on something from AliExpress, but personally, you're not really supporting the people who put a lot of time and effort into actually making these. These look very mass produced, and the ones that you get from kind of approved vendors have a way better quality, as you can see here. You know, even the ESP is a little bit different. Comes with things like assembled in America that you can see there, and open source miners unite. As I said, it's probably better to get one from an approved vendor, but if you're on a budget and you can find one cheap enough on AliExpress, it's kind of down to you. I would do some upgrades though, because this is not really the greatest in terms of the heatsink. Even underneath, it looks like they have a lot of thermal paste kind of put around by here as well. And that fan, I don't really trust it too much. But maybe in the future we'll replace it with, you know, a better heatsink and a better fan, and we'll keep it hashing in the meantime. So let me know your thoughts on the video. If you want to see more of us diving into this, or if you have any questions about it, please let me know, and I'll try and answer them. As I said, don't recommend buying one from AliExpress. If you can support some of the smaller vendors out there, then please go ahead. Make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.